Hi guys, today's video is going to be a little bit different because my books that I've read this month were the Powerless trilogy. That was all I got done in April. But I really want to talk more than talking about what the books are and like if I think you'd like them, whatever. I really want to focus on how I think that Powerless's inspiration from the Hunger Games and from Red Queen can actually benefit the book community. This may sound like a wild thing to say. But I have a point, okay? Just watch the end. I think you'll get it. So I think that you've probably seen, if you're on Book Talk at all, the controversy with Powerless being oddly similar to other titles, including Hunger Games and including Red Queen. There's parts, I read Red Queen in middle school, so like 5 years ago, and I loved it, and I read it like I think 4 times in a row, the entire series. It was insane. And I've read Hunger Games a couple times. I read it like in elementary school and then again in middle school. And I think that I read it again in high school because I read it when the new, like, I reread the whole series when books came out, like the new prequels and stuff. So I'm pretty well versed in both of those series. And I very recently this month read Powerless. And I thought that maybe people were exaggerating a little bit, like it can't have been that bad. No, it was. There were like direct quotes, very specific plot lines, like the sister's sewing fingers getting broken being a really pivotal moment. That's an odd thing. Like, I read a lot and I've never come across that in anything else. The structure of the games, the naming of things, the blue-haired announcer really struck me as Hunger Games, and I hadn't even heard anything about this copying Hunger Games yet. I'd only heard the Red Queen controversy, and I was like, whoa, that's like the guy from Hunger Games. And then I started, there's just like, there's so much. And I'm not hating on Powerless. I enjoyed Powerless. I did not enjoy it as much as either Hunger Games or Red Queen, but that's a personal choice. And I'm not saying you can't like Powerless. I am saying that I'm not going to use the word copyright because that's a legal term, or plagiarism, but inspiration taken is maybe problematic. And by maybe, I mean, we don't copy other people. But, I also know in the author's defense that she's talked about that she wrote it mostly as fan fiction and didn't really think it would get published. And like, I'm not saying she's a terrible person, but here's what I do think is an interesting conversation that I haven't heard a lot of people talk about is how this could actually, I think, is helping the book community in two main ways. One, it's reminding us that even books like Powerless, we have to read critically to an extent, right? Like, I'm not saying that every book you read has to be some classic, big, like, performative book, right? You can read whatever you want, but you have to read everything a little critically. And I think this is a good reminder of that for us. And I also think, more importantly, it's really, I don't think that like Powerless's deals are going to be, taken down. I don't think that anything's going to happen with that situation specifically. But I think that in an age of AI and, all the news about like HarperCollins maybe trying to get an AI book published and all this stuff, I think that this going viral and this issue going viral really is going to show publishers that we care about authenticity and we care about author rights, maybe even more than we do more books coming out, right? And I think that this really goes to show how much in an age of plagiarism by machines, like, people care. They notice. They notice big time. And they really do care. And so I think that at the end of the day, Red Queen is wildly successful and so is Hunger Games. Especially like Red Queen published 10 years ago. So I'm not saying that they need the publicity, but I think that hopefully this will draw new readers to Victoria Aveyard because she's really amazing and deserves that. But I also hope that it shows publishing houses how much people care about things like inspiration that's too heavy. And I really hope that if this could be such a big deal with real people, I hope that this inspires people to fight more about inspiration and plagiarism from other sources, because AI copy and pastes, and you know, you can feel how you want about that, but I feel pretty confident that that's how that works. And by pretty confident, I mean that is totally how AI functions. And so, I hope that while nothing is ever going to be truly original and not, inspired by anything, this really truly shows people how much we as a community can care and can come together to care about something and read deep enough. Like one of their arguments was people aren't going to notice the difference. And people do. People read critically enough to have noticed connections between books that were published 10 years apart. And I would bet most people, I mean, I hadn't read Queen in probably 4 years. And that would have been at the most. And I recognized direct quotes. And so I hope that this really shows people how deeply people now are reading, because I think that some of the argument from the industry about saying AI books are good is that people aren't really reading them. They're like passively consuming. And I just don't think that's true. I think even if you're reading the most like intellectually looked down upon smart book, I think that you're really looking at it and reading it much deeper than is assumed in our time right now. So I don't think this will ever get to Victoria Aveyard, but if it does, I'm very sorry. And I love your books, and I hope that this inspires all of you guys to read a little more critically and look into what you're reading, but also to read for fun. And we shouldn't criticize what other people read because of the genre it is. Because books like Red Queen, while being fun, and books like Powerless, while being fun, and books like Hunger Games, while being fun, and kids' books, make a huge political statement, and they say a lot about what the authors think, and give us new ideas on things to think about, especially politically. So that was a very different video than normal. I think next month we'll probably be back to this is what I read and this was it was about. But thank you so much for watching, and come back next week. Bye.